Oh, well, we can do that right now.
Yes, we're live.
Yeah, we're live on Facebook. Hi, Steluta.
Hi, Julie. How are you?
Really excited to have you because this actually started off just as a little conversation around body shame. I did this exercise actually with my group in my incubator, and I just got them to write on body shame. And one of the guys in the group actually wrote such a beautiful piece, and I was like, I have to post that. And that simple message resonated with so many people that, like, last week I talked with Steve Lamb, and then you're like, hey, I want to talk about this too, because this is a topic that you love talking about because you know how many people are suffering because of the body shame, right? So tell us a little bit about your background and why this whole conversation around body shame is so important to you.
Okay, so I'm a health coach now, but for the past 2 decades, I've been a technology sales executive. I come from Southeastern Europe, moved here a couple of years ago in Vancouver, and I've been going through a lot of changes in my life, I think within the past 2.5 years, something like that. As a health coach, and not only as a health coach, but also as a mother and as a friend, and also as a colleague, I've had loads of interactions with women on, body and the way they feel about their body, the way they age, the way they show up in the world or don't show up in the world because of the way they feel about their body. And one of the things that really scares me, because I have a daughter, is how much women miss out, and not only women, but because my interaction is mostly with women, because I work mostly with women, how much women are missing out on life, and how much relationships are affected by body shame because of body shame, right? So this is one of the things that really, for me, I was fortunate to not suffer of body shame and to be kind of like the people who, don't give a damn about what other people think about myself or say about myself. But unfortunately, I have a lot of friends and a lot of clients who are not like that. And I have a daughter who is not like that, who gives a lot on what other people think, her colleagues especially. So for me, it's really important to, to try to teach my daughter and to guide other women to understand that this body is a given body, but you can work on it, but it's not important, you can work on it and you can make it better and improve it and start looking better or accept it the way it is. But it needs to be your relationship with yourself that brings you out in the world, not your relationship with your shame or with other people that brings you out with confidence in the world. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, like it's like, don't use this dubious relationship to your body that could be full of shame or full of pressure to be what actually brings you out and serves you in the world to connect with other people and show up and share your gifts and share who you are, kind of thing.
Exactly. I was watching your conversation with Steve the other week, and you really beautifully put it that, it needs to be you should care about, other people, and you should care about their opinions in certain aspects, and you should care about, you looking fit and nice and beautiful, but it should come from an inner desire. It shouldn't come from an external pressure.
Right.
It shouldn't come because you want to fit in a certain stereotype, or because you want to, please some groups, or, just try to be accepted in there. It should come just from your inner desire to develop yourself, or to be stronger, or to whatever. But this should be the inner drive for a woman and for a person to show up in the world and to want to be their best selves.
Yeah.
So
when you say that, the image that comes to me is, like the stock market. It's like let's say you had to base your value on how the stock markets go up and down, and you don't have a lot of control over that, and it can change on an instant, you know? And
Yeah.
that's like, that would be the gaze of the eyes looking at you, and they can change like for whatever reason, up and down, you know? And if you
Yeah.
had to go through that roller coaster for your own inner sense of worth and you know, capacity being loved, that would be a harsh experience. Like, it's like being on a roller coaster all the time.
Well, yeah, you're right. You know, I had a very, I can relate to what you're saying now, because I myself, I have like stock marketing investments, you know, and I've seen my roller coaster of emotions throughout this period, you know, with the stock market going up like that. I can't even imagine what it would feel like to live your life like that, you know,
Yeah.
being in a total roller coaster of emotions because of whatever somebody said or whatever somebody thinks or whatever
Yeah.
reason that comes from outside. I think we are pretty harsh on ourselves, and I think we are, you know, our inner critic voice is pretty strong.
Yeah.
I am, and I guess yourself and many of your audience are also, you know, kind of like type A self-driven women and men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the pressure that we are putting on ourselves to be the best that we can in the world is enough. We don't need the pressure from other people to kind of like propel us to whatever we need to do. So
yeah. So like, let's say to anchor this into reality, into like someone's life, like in your interactions with different people in the professional world, in your groups of friends, even conversation with your daughter, like what was like that moment where you're like, wow, there's a real problem here. Like there's so much suffering in this. What would have, like, what kind of anecdote can you share with us where you're like, that was like a wake up call?
well, it was, for me, it's easy to share one like that. It's my daughter. Yeah, so I can give you two. Yeah, one which is, you know, with involving a child who is a teenager, who is starting, you know, to prepare herself to show up in the world. It's now, these are the years in which she forms herself as an individual that will show up in the world and will prepare her for her relationships in the future and for her relationship with herself. And the other one would be with a woman that I know, about a woman that I know.
Okay.
So my daughter is fortunate to be really beautiful. And I'm not saying that because I'm her mother. I'm saying that because I know other people's opinions on herself. So she's fortunate to have a beautiful body and a beautiful face and to have a beautiful presence. But yet she's very insecure, right? So she's not wearing certain things because it may, even though she's like thin, like a, you know, like a stick, she's not wearing certain things because she feels they make her look fat, and she's kind of like half the size of regular girls, right? And I'm pretty concerned about that, because this comes, I'm not like that. I'm not like the person that would, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not spending hours in the mirror or, you know, putting a lot of emphasis on being skinny or whatever. I'm not skinny myself as well. But I see this coming from, you know, all these media places that she shows up, like YouTube or TikTok now, which is huge in their age range and everything. So this really scares me. And for me, when she told me that she's not wearing a certain pair of pants because it make her look fat, it was like a really triggering moment that I need to pay attention more. And I need to kind of like probably emphasize more in the, you know, in what I'm teaching her about her relationship with the world and with herself. And the other one has to do with a friend of mine.
Just before we go into the other situation, it just always shocks me, like, you know, there's how old is she? You said she was 14?
13.
13, okay.
She just turned 13,
She's
yeah.
13, and she's got this really powerful message that if she's fat or has a little more fat on her body, that it's dangerous. Like her social currency and her well-being and her sense of wellness in the world is taken away from her. And it's like, it's this, for me, it's just like, wow, like, and you're telling me she's like really, really skinny. And it's like, why as a society, how could we have created that for a 13-year-old that's really skinny already, that they're scared just gonna have a few more ounces on their body, or that might make them look a little more fat? Like where does this obsession, you know, like how
I
does this
think,
obsession take hold?
yeah,
Why is it so dangerous? Like, yeah, okay, you have a little more fat. So what? You know, why is it so important, you know?
yeah. I don't know why. I think it has to do, I mean, for me, it's not like that, but I think it has to do a lot with, you know, all this media and all these images of perfectly looking young women, and not only young, but, you know, middle-aged women who are like, you know, these Hollywood products that only show up in the world wearing the makeup, which is intact, and, you know, having the out-of-box look. So, and all this, I think you touched on that in your discussion with Steve as well, you know, all these campaigns and on lingerie and everything, in which everybody, you know, all the girls and all the guys are like fit, and there's no curve in there. There's only, you know, and that's the image that it's kind of like transmitted to them, and it ingrains in them that that's how the body should look like. And that's because they're out there and they're celebrated, being on the podium and being on the, that's the image of success. That's what you need to have to be successful. So for me, as a mom and as a woman, it's really scary to see that, because like her, there are so many other girls. I mean, she's just only one girl in a sea of other young teenagers who are experiencing, you know, distorted relationship with their bodies because of the image that has been imposed on them by media.
Well, it just dawns on me like wow, like having that extra fat is like the enemy. You know, it's like it's really that kind of relationship. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and though I mean, I've known I've known throughout my life women who are really good looking, as per my values, as per my opinion, and who are really insecure about themselves. But I was also fortunate to have friends who had, you know, some extra pounds and didn't give a damn about it. They were really happy about the way they were looking. And I always fluctuated my weight, and I've never been, you know, this very skinny and everything, you know, like the image, the idealized image of a woman. I've always been curvy, and I've always had, you know, meat on me, but I've never had a problem with myself, like in terms of, you know, basing my relationships and my opinions of myself on the way I look. No, but I think this needs to be addressed quite a lot, and I think there needs to be a lot done in this respect, because this trend.
Like when I agree about like the children, like I was also a teacher with young children and becoming teenagers, and one thing that I do notice is that, let's say you really have a bad relationship with your body, you're also giving your power away, because anything that touches your body, then right away you become illegitimate, or, you know, you go down the totem pole. And it's like all this brilliance of a human being gets reduced to these things. And, you know, all kinds of weird situations happen where this becomes a way of, you know, losing your voice and losing your well-being. So I think you're right on when it's like we have to really call it out, like especially for these young 13 and 14-year-olds, you know, that have to go through this like grueling part of their life where their bodies are transforming, and suddenly this can impact them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and they're going through hard times, because they're like in this realm in which they're in between, you know, being young kids, still longing for their parents' nurture and everything, and these young women trying to figure out their way in their group and in their, you know, in society. So I think this in itself is pretty daunting on them, and it's pretty heavy burden to carry. They don't need other extra load
Yes.
To kind of like ponder on them and be heavy on them in life. So I think we need to do a lot in regards to that, in regards to, empowering young women to understand that, as you said, once you learn to respect and to love your body as it is, you hold the power to yourself and you are in charge of your life and you show up in the world as per your desire. And this is really strong. And I think it is only when you show up like that in full confidence and with your full power, you can do whatever you want and you can achieve whatever you want in your life. And you are a changer in the world, not just a follower and just a person who is kind of like carried by the wave and
totally
ends up, beating themselves in their late years. And
well, I think you kind of hit it on the nail when you talked about like we need to diversify the role models, because if they're just seeing one type of body and one kind of thing, I mean, it's always really fascinating to go to the change room, like in pools and stuff, or even a nudist beach, because you're like, oh my God, like everybody's so beautiful and everybody's so different. Like we have been trained to see one type of body. When you go in reality, there's so much beauty, but like it's so different. Everybody is so different.
Exactly.
So let's jump to the next one. That other story that was in your friend group, where you sort of like, okay, this is really an issue. It's really a problem.
Yeah. So I have this friend back home, and she's a bit older than me. I mean, I'm 42 and she's 44. And we've known each other for quite a while now. And I remember talking to her before she turned 40, and I remember talking to her, and for her, like turning 40 was like, that was the end of the life. As a woman, you turn 40, then you're old, you don't give a damn about anything else. And I had a discussion recently with, not with her, but with her husband. And he was telling me, she's kind of put on some weight, but the issue is not that. Yeah. The issue is that she's now, even though she has a pool outside, outside her house, in her yard and everything, she's not going out to enjoy the pool because she's not feeling, she feels shame about the way she looks and about the fact that, she's not looking as maybe per her expectations or her husband's expectations or whatever. So it was, for me, it was also a moment in which I was like, I really wish I could, have the tools to help women who feel like that understand that, first of all, it's your choice. You can be like whatever weight you want to be at. Yeah, it's your choice to feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need your husband's opinions and approval. You don't need my approval or your approval. You only need, yourself to accept yourself where you are. There are moments in life in which you feel good. There are moments in life in which you, I don't know, try to kind of like mitigate your emotions through food. And I see that a lot in my clients and in the people that I work with. But you need to accept it as it is and don't make a problem out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you know, in coaching, you say that, you need to focus on the solution, not on the problem, because focusing on the problem in itself will only make the problem bigger. It will not help you move to the next step. So for me, it's like, okay, instead of shaming yourself and instead of missing out on your beautiful life, just accept it as it is, live with it until you feel like you can't live with it anymore. And then you take it to the next level or go reach out for help or whatever. But it is, for me, as I told you, it's like really sad to see how many women and how many men, not only women, miss out on their life because of the shame they feel about the way they look in a certain moment of their life, or some of them, unfortunately, for a long time in their life. Right?
Yeah. That actually is a really good example. Like, it's this pool is in the backyard of their house, and it's very private, and yet still there's something going on for her. Probably some form of some form of association about not being legitimate if she's not perfectly beautiful in a certain way. Like it's almost like her existence dependent on certain criteria, and since she hasn't met those criteria, then she can't allow herself to go and enjoy her pool and be loved. Like there's a whole love piece in there too, I think, like of being being accepted and loved. Like if you're not looking perfect, you won't be loved. And a lot of women learn to get the attention they need growing up and getting the feeling of self-worth through their bodies, through getting, oh, you're such a pretty girl, or you're so, you're so hot, or the guy, they learn quickly that if they want to get the attention of the opposite sex, that they're like, they have to be a certain way, or the certain women or some girls get that attention. So there's this kind of deep programming about how, who has the power.
Exactly.
And there's like a dismantling of that needs to happen to say like, hey, this is just like constructed ideas, really.
Yeah. And you always, what I try to teach my daughter, and I try to teach the women that I work with, is that you always have a choice in regards to what you think. Yeah, there are all these thoughts that have been engraved on us, and we've been having them for years, tens of years, some of us, right? But once you get a hold of your thoughts, once you become mindful of your thoughts and you become aware of them, you do have a choice to change these thoughts, to change the patterns of the way you think. So I think this is a really powerful thing for women and for men, the same, to kind of understand that you do have a choice in regards to everything you do in your life, to everything you think in your life. It's not only in regards to what you do, but in regards to what you think. And for me, it was really interesting when I started studying neuroscience that I can really choose my own thoughts once I'm aware of the old thoughts that I've been recycling in my head, which don't even belong to me, or thoughts that have been, implanted in me by, as you said, people that you grow up with, or boyfriends, or whatever, or people that you work with. So I think this is one of the things that I would love so many people to understand, or all the people to understand, is that you do have a strong choice in regards to what you think, and in regards to changing everything in your life.
So if you were to, I mean, maybe before we go into what would you do for coaching with someone, because you kind of were hinting to that a little bit. I think we can dive into that a little bit in a moment. But I think it would be really nice for us to just, from that health coach, corporate world, insider, what do you feel have been some of the, what are some of the major impacts that people experience where they're missing out of life because of their bodies, or the body shame?
So my corporate life has been like my career, right, for the past 20 years. And I've been seeing colleagues, both male and female, not going out with their friends in the evening or with their colleagues, not enjoying the parties or not showing up for the parties because of the way they feel, or the way they, they perceive themselves.
So it's not that they're tired, or they're like introverted. It's more like they're worried they're not going to get any attention, or they're going to be forgotten or not cared for because they're not the hottest thing on the dance floor.
Or bullied in a way or another, right? So because bullying it's not necessarily something, which is very aggressive. It could be, just some kind of like very sharp,
little poisonous dart.
Exactly. So I've been seeing that a lot, unfortunately. So this is one aspect in which I think in my career, like as a corporate executive, I've seen people missing out on even opportunities, because it's said that in the business world, it's said that many relationships and many businesses are done over dinner, not in the office meeting room. So many of them are missing out on business opportunities because of the way they feel about themselves. Yeah, because not showing up because of not showing up. So I think this is the thing that comes to mind now. In regards to my practice as a health coach, I see a lot of women who don't go out dating, are single and suffer because of that, but don't go out dating because they are ashamed of the way they look.
What are the kind of things they tell you? Like, how do they explain it to you?
Well, it's, I'm fat. I think it's the most straightforward one. I don't look like the other girls.
Like, I'm fat, no one's gonna want to go out with me, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's usually what comes after I'm fat. Who's gonna look at me, right? So that's one. And or I'm old, even though they're not old at all, if you're asking me, or if you're asking many other women and men. So I think this is where it comes up the most, because we live in a society, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I attract a lot of women who are single women. All right. Very few single people are happy with their status, and they're, I don't know, content with being single. So many of them are either in between relationships, or actively looking, or actively longing for a relationship without doing anything, because of their insecurities and because of the way they feel. So
I'm thinking, like, even in terms of like someone who feels embarrassed with their body and is not allowing themselves to be out there, and they have probably issues around their own personal self-love, but it's like they don't there's no space for them to allow other people to love them, because they don't believe that they can be loved either. And so they don't allow, like, that the basic things of life, of like feeling loved and touched and cared for.
Yeah, I think you touched on a very, very sensitive and deep spot, because what I see a lot in women who suffer from body shame has to do with their self-love, which stops them from being loved. Right? So this, exactly as you said it, your inability to love yourself, and the way you stop yourself from, loving yourself, shows up in everything that you do, in everything, in every relationship. And you will never attract, as an individual, you will never attract around you a partner to love you the way you are worth and you deserve, unless you love yourself. So, and I've seen that, unfortunately, a lot in many of my friends and many of the people that I work with. I think people need to learn to let go of these fears and to discover themselves with, one of the things that I think it's beautiful about coaching is that it empowers people to discover themselves and their strength, and to move the needle forward themselves without, being told what to do, but it empowers them to do that by themselves, to discover themselves. So I think this thing with self-love, it's really big, and it has to do with body shame. And
well, I think it's really, you kind of hinted to this before we started our interview, but that, I think there's many different reasons why people can have extra weight on their bodies. It could be like health reasons, but I think we also, and maybe just habit life, but usually habit life is also a reflection of how we're feeling. So if we happen to be eating a lot because we're not feeling good or ungrounded or whatever, our bodies are going to reflect what's going on for us inwardly. But I think as well that we don't talk enough about how usually people that have put on more weight, they can also be holding different traumas in their bodies. They can be protecting themselves from, it's kind of been like their mechanism for protection in the world. So I think these two, like, sometimes we don't talk enough a lot about that. Like, if we actually were able to support people in discovering the source of what's causing this need for protection or in being invisible. There's all kinds of things that come up with body shame, right? There's being invisible, you don't think you're worth it, you hide, you envelop yourself, maybe you were young and beautiful and you were so much of a threat that you got attacked in all kinds of different ways, and then you put on weight because you're like, hey, this is safer this way, you know? There's so many different things. Do you have any sort of insights around that whole piece about, you know, what we hold in our bodies, like the emotions that we hold in our bodies?
Yeah, so I am a firm believer of the fact that everything in our life comes from our childhood. All the trauma, all the pain that we carry with us comes from our childhood. And I am a firm believer of the fact that we carry it in our body. And there are a lot of studies around that, and there are a lot of, you know, trains of thought about where you perceive your trauma in your body, which kind of trauma in which part of the body. Is it a fascia? Is it, you know, wherever? So this affects quite a lot of people. And I think this is where a good therapist comes in place. And I think that, so because there is a difference between coaching and therapy, a huge difference actually between coaching and therapy. I think that once people discover that there are places in their, you know, parts of their life that need to be healed, I truly, and from the bottom of my heart, advise that they go and seek out help, because it's a pity. This life is so freaking short, and it's a pity to not be able to live it fully, because, you know, I've experienced a near-death experience, and I realized, you know, that one day you are, and the next, you know, not the next day, but the next second, you might not be there anymore. So I think we were given this beautiful life as a gift. And I think that not living it fully and not expressing yourself fully, it's a pity. And once you discover that there are things in your life and in your childhood, because I do believe that in early years, we are most exposed to trauma, not necessarily childhood, but early years, right? So I think I advise everybody to go and seek out help, and, you know, but really specialized therapists that can really help.
Cover that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about sex and shame, body shame, you know, because, you know, to be able to let yourself being touched, to allow yourself to relax, to feel like you enjoy someone touching you. I mean, I've talked with women that, you know, they just don't like their belly. So if anyone touches their belly, it doesn't become pleasure. It's like, it's almost like an attack on it's like it's highlighting what you're not feeling good about. So yeah, like, what are the different places where does this show up in sex?
Well, have you heard women or men having sex or making love with their lights off?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Well, if we ask the partner if it's their choice, I bet you most of the times it's not. I bet you they would love to see their partner.
Yeah.
So I think it shows up, as you said, it shows up a lot. You know, not enjoying sex, you know, doing it with your light off, not doing it at all.
Yeah.
I was watching this TED Talk the other day, and I was so surprised. It was on sex, marriage, masturbation, and there was another thing in the topic. And it was astonishing to hear that only 7% of the married couples still have sex.
Yeah.
So I think it shows up a lot in sexual intercourse, and, you know, in people enjoying their intimate relationship. And I think, unfortunately, not enjoying this and not allowing your partner to enjoy it the way he would or she would want to enjoy it takes a toll on the relationship as well.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, like, you know, let's say just the simple fact of touching someone and they don't feel good about their body in that place. You know, when you deconstruct that for a moment, it's like if that person decided they love that part of their body and received the touch and felt loved in that moment, you know, like they could completely shift around their experience.
Yeah, because, you know, shifting, as you said, shifting their experience comes from experiencing a powerful emotion. That's the only moment when we can create new pathways in our brain and shift the way we think, when we attach strong emotional experiences to that situation. So I think
that's a good thing to highlight.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what it's really funny and sad at the same time is that, you know, we have women, we have such a different opinion on ourselves, of ourselves, than our men have on ourselves. So
yes.
I might think that my ass is fat, right? It's big, but my husband might love it. Or I might think that, you know, I have, as you said, a bit of a tummy, but my husband would love it. And as you said, learning to open up and accept the love that it's offered to you might shift, you know, the way you feel about yourself, and might take the relationship to the next level, and might impact the life like 100% and change it to 180 degrees, you know. Well, but it takes a lot of.
Yeah, and I think you're so right when you talk about there's so many myths out there about what people like and what people's preferences are. And I just think back at I had these two experiences once where I was with a man that his body was like chiseled like a marble, like sculpture. And it was all like really hard, like he'd been a soccer player. And the way the relationship, physical relationship kind of like unfolded was like really like hard and not warm, and just really like there was no like nothing to feel warm into. And then being with like other men that have more of an envelope where it's like they're not like they're six pack, and it's more like, you know, like comfy and warm and embodied. It's like there's just a whole other experience. If someone would think, well, we have to look like that for the women to love me. But, you know, like there's something about the visuals about something, and then like if you get into the sensual experience of something, you're really coming from a different place, and it's a very different experience. And of course, like everyone has their preferences. It's not to say that there's one way or another, but like, yeah, it would be really nice that we could diversify the expression of what everyone likes and what everyone is enjoying, because it's not as simple as we think. You know?
It's not at all. And I think, you know, you had your experience with a good looking guy, or whatever, you know, we might call him. But this is not to put a label on the fact that all good looking guys are, you know, cold and, you know, like, it's not like, as we were talking earlier, it's not like all good looking women are, you know, self-confident. And, you know, there are many good looking women who kind of like sabotage themselves, and they think poorly about themselves. And I had my best friend in college. She was overweight by any standards, and she had the most amazing relationship with this guy. And he was thin, or he was like extremely thin. He was skinny, really. And they were making this strange, you know, looking from the outside couple, but they were so happy together. And it had nothing to do with the way they looked. Yeah. It had to do with the chemistry between themselves, and it had to do with you know, where they were in their lives, and with the way they connected, and the way they viewed each other, and the way they supported each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that unfortunately this self-objectification, or whatever it's called, you know, in which we see ourselves, just, you know, we put this lens in which we need to look in a certain way, or our partner needs to look in a certain way. I think it's really detrimental in our, you know, well-being and our mental health, and the health of the way we live our lives, because we are so much more, we're such complex human beings and spiritual beings. I don't think my husband loves me solely because of the way I look. yeah, it might have, of course, a certain percentage in the way, but he didn't fall in love with me because of, I don't know, I'm blonde, or because he fell in love with me because of the personality and because of what I bring, because of how I make him feel. And I think this is really important for people to understand that it's, you know, if somebody sees you just as an object, then that's not the relationship that you need to be in.
Yeah.
And you need to keep looking and find the person that sees you for the person that you are, not for the object that you are.
Well, I mean, sometimes I think, it can be a real like trap to be so perfectly physically attractive, because sometimes you then attract people who are just attracted to that. And sometimes it's nice to not be perfect on the outside so that you really do attract these beautiful human beings that see that, and because
Exactly.
it takes something to get out of just that superficial connection, like,
Yeah.
we all can be sensitive to it, but there's
Sure.
like to deepen our soul experiences and to deepen our spiritual like identities and knowledge and connection and discovering this whole like experience of being a human being. It's vast, like you say, and there's so many layers. And to have someone that's like this beautiful, vibrant human being beside us to be able to explore that with is so much more important than having this perfectly fit body. I mean, not to discredit after that, yeah, we're taking care of our bodies and we want to be healthy and we want to feel enlivened and good and whatever. And we can take steps to make sure that we're doing some routines where we're taking care of ourselves and making it, but it's not coming from this place of contraction, of scarcity.
Exactly.
That like, this is the only thing that's going to make me find a spot in the world. This is the only way I'm going to get love in the world. It's like the human experience is so much vaster than that. I love how you bring that in, that you're like, we have to expand what this human experience is.
Yeah, that's true. So this is not to say that, if you're good looking and if you're fit and you're ripped and everything, you're a superficial human being.
Yes.
So it has to do with, it's, everybody is at their place in their life, and we shouldn't be, nobody should be labeled and should feel less because of the way they look.
Or
so
even
if you feel happy,
yeah,
if you're ripped and you're shredded because this makes you happy and you do it because I don't know, it's your job or it makes you really feel happy, that's how you feel healthy or whatever, this is amazing, as long as it doesn't come from a place of as you said, contraction, and that's the only way I can show up in the world, and that's the only way that people will see me
mm-hmm.
Dot.
So that concept of like missing out on life because of something, like that's a good question. Like, okay, I might not be at the top of my game right now, but am I going to miss out on opportunities? If the answer is yes, like let's dig into that. If it's like no, yeah, just jump into life. And it doesn't mean that you can't do things to take care of yourself and make yourself look beautiful in terms of like that classical, physically fit way.
Exactly. And, there was this saying that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So not everything that I see beauty, you might see beauty in.
Mm-hmm.
And, beauty it's such a subjective, notion. There's, yeah, of course, there is like these standards that we all consider certain things or certain persons like the beautified model, but it should be much more than the way you look, and it should be much more about the way you feel. And I think, as you said, if you feel like you're just spending your life indoors because you're not okay with yourself, dive deep and see where does this come from, and see where do you need to go to reach out for help, and don't stay there, because I've seen so many beautiful human beings kind of like fading because of not addressing certain strong issues that they were facing, and it's a pity. It's a pity.
Well, I was just thinking, like, that there's this whole process with self, that needs to happen where I just know for myself, I have this little fitness group that I created with some friends and family. And sometimes I do on purpose to take photos of myself where I look like I really take a photo with fat or the part of my body that is not like classically celebrated, just to like be like, hey, I accept this about myself. Like, or I put it, it's like, this is the reality that I'm dealing with, instead of like wanting to hide it. And then sometimes I'll take photos of me where I'm like, wow, I look like I really look good. And it makes me feel like, yeah, like I'm getting progress on my fitness regime or whatever, but I think like I'm saying this because I feel that there's some real value in sometimes, like even on this whole Instagram, we all talk about the Instagram perfect images. Sometimes to like, just to see if you're actually free with yourself, to post a photo of yourself where you're not perfect, you know, have that experience of like, there's sometimes when you do that beautiful picture because it's fun to look good and be celebrated, but try out that photo that's not great or you don't look good, or just to see if you're able to live with it. And if you are, like, that's a really good place to be in. Like, for me, it's a real place of freedom. And if you can't, then it's like there's almost this need to control how you look to the world. And that's when the disease starts setting in,
Yeah. I think taking it out into the world is, it's, if you're able to do that, I think you're really standing strong with yourself, and you have a strong relationship, and you have kind of like your awareness about yourself is like, it's where it needs to be. There are many, I mean, I wouldn't go out and say, just show your cellulite in the world if you don't feel comfortable with that. This won't change anything if you don't do it from a place in which you feel really okay with doing it, right? So I think I've seen, there was this influencer, and she was like this gorgeous image goddess, Greek goddess, looking like, all the time being out of a box, wearing labels and everything. And she posted one picture of herself, I mean, with her, from the back, showing her cellulite. And she talked about it, and she said that it took her 2 months to get to the place to be comfortable sharing that picture with the world. And to her surprise, everybody was celebrating her, right? So, but I think it needs a lot of a strong relationship with yourself and a lot of confidence to be able to do that.
And it's I think it might not be like with the whole world, it's like, I know that I wouldn't necessarily do it with my whole feed on Facebook or Instagram. Some people are capable of doing all kinds of stuff online. Yeah. I'm a more, reserved, intimate person, but like with a small group of people that they should be the people that I can trust. Why not? Like if these are people that are standing for me and love me, then I should be able to show parts of myself that maybe I'm not feeling so comfortable about, but that I could be like, hey, this is part of me. What do you think?
And
like,
and I think
it's all right. I'm not going to die if it's there in my life.
It's really amazing because, showing your vulnerability and being able to open up like that inspires a lot of other people. So I think we're being very harsh on ourselves, and I think we're spending too much time in our heads about many of the things that concern us. And in reality, if we were more open, and if we would learn to be more vulnerable, we would not only be happier, but also, as you said, find support, and we would also inspire other people to be vulnerable. Because none of us is like this strong human being 100% of the time. All the times I think throughout one single day, we're going up and down and fluctuating, and not to say throughout a week or a year or whatever. So I think having the courage to be vulnerable is an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's very inspirational. And I think I was experiencing in my life people who were vulnerable and really inspired me to learn to open up and, either show my weaknesses or what I perceived as being a weakness or my sweet spots or whatever, or talk about them or, and I think this is really important to understand that you don't have to be perfect. No, not all the time. You don't have to be perfect. Point. Stop.
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be yourself and learn to accept yourself just as you are. Yeah. And I know it's not easy, and I know,
process.
It's a process, and I think, except if you're, I don't know, Dalai Lama or whatever, I think we all are going through all these internal processes in which one day we're better, some days we could be even better. But I think it's a process that everybody needs to, just accept it and accept that it's a process. We're just human beings. We're not gods. We're not anything but just plain human beings. And it's amazing to see, all these beautiful people that are the products of, Hollywood or labels or whatever, when they really show up in their vulnerability, and to see that, they can, all the reaction and all the pressure that is taken off the shoulders of regular people like you and me, who think that we need to be, these perfect, beautiful beings to be loved and accepted and everything. So I think showing up as we are, it's really important. And coming back to, children and teenagers, I think us showing up in our vulnerability is a model that they can take on and model in their lives, understanding and learning that they don't need to be perfect, and nobody needs to be perfect, because there's no such thing as perfect. This crazy thing that, you need to be perfect, or that practice makes perfect. It's a nonsense. There's no such thing as perfect.
Well, it just keeps on reminding me of, like, the more that you reclaim your sovereignty as a human being, and that means your self-worth, your being able to show parts of yourself that are not perfect and be like, I'm fine with this, and embrace yourself fully, the more you actually become a very empowered human being. And, like, you get to these places where, because, like, anytime it's like, it's like Achilles heel. Like, if you have a body shame, it's like an Achilles heel. People just have to go press that, and it's like, you're done, but it's like, when you really take it on, and it doesn't have to be like all resolved in one shot, but like, you keep on testing yourself, and like, how can you just, like, step into more power around your body a little bit more all the time, and it just, your position in the world and what happens to you is complete transformed, because you're just getting this real rooted sense about yourself in your body. Exactly. And I also see, have you ever heard of the term wabi-sabi?
No.
It's a Japanese term. I'm not going to be able to give the perfect definition of it, but it's something like, basically, like, it's the crack. Let's say you have they make pottery. It's the crack in the pottery that actually makes the piece perfect, It's that kind of imperfection, the perfection in the imperfection. And I think that's something that's like an art form to develop, find that beauty in the imperfection.
Yeah. And find that beauty in your imperfection.
Yeah.
And empower yourself through it. Because there's no other way to show up at your best unless you love yourself and you accept yourself, and not necessarily, so you don't, or people don't get me wrong, not necessarily accept yourself as you are and just, as a fact, and there's nothing you can do about it, but accept it, embrace it, and learn and do the things that you think can be done to make it better, if you feel like you need to make it better.
Exactly.
Just embrace the imperfections, and
of, like, on the one hand, just keep on leaning into stretching your experience, and on the other hand, always always striving for, like, embracing what is, always accepting and just being with what is all the time, without, like, giving up on things, but not, just finding there's a kind of quality that I feel you're describing where there's a sense of settledness and acceptance, and yet also a possibility for growth. And if you want to become that ripped person, it's like, hey, anyone can do whatever they want. If you want to go for that, do that, and love yourself at every step of the way.
I have this friend, and we became friends. We're business accountability partners, and we were in this mastermind, and that's how we connected, and we stayed in touch after the mastermind. And she is 57, and she's one of the most, the most inspirational human beings in my life. And she keeps on talking about, she is a fitness trainer, and she's 57, and she started doing that, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And she started professionally competing as a bikini model at 54. I don't know if you see my point.
Yeah.
But I think, and she talks a lot about, accepting yourself, but striving for better. And she recently posted some pictures. She's now in the middle of preparing for a contest, so she's shredding like crazy, but she's doing this because she loves it. She doesn't do it because she needs anybody's acceptance. She has a loving husband and 3 beautiful grown-up children, but she does this because she loves the challenge in itself. And because that's what she wants to do, and it comes from her inner desire to do this, not because of ticking a box that if you're 57 you need to look good in your bikini. I don't think any 57 woman would think that she needs to look good in her bikini, right? And she recently posted a picture of herself when she was not shredded, right? And she was touching exactly on this topic, that she loved her body when she is ripped. She loves her body when she is ripped, and she loves it when she's curvy, like any regular, or most of the human beings on this planet. Most of the women on the planet are curvy, at least. Yeah. And she loves herself regardless of the way she looks, and regardless of whatever people think of her. And I think this is exactly what you are saying. So you need to, strive for it better, but from a place in which you are happy with yourself, and you want to do it because you feel that's the right thing for you, and not because of anything else. But also not accepting your status quo as being, a burden that you need to carry, and there's nothing you can do about it. And
right. Like it's always being in that empowered place wherever you are.
Exactly.
Well, I'm really excited because the next show I talked to a woman that is actually a very large woman, and men love having sex with her. And she's very happy about it. And I had a few conversations with her around body shame and what she has learned to do to be this completely attractive human being, even if she's really a larger woman, and larger in the sense of like, you have the accepted versions of the larger women's in the plus stores, but like, just like, not even like necessarily someone you'd have like as a it's not necessarily it's not necessarily that sort of polished look. It's like, she's just herself, So I'm really excited for her to share how she's come to that place of real, like almost like radical acceptance, and how that shows up in her sexuality. So that's going to be the next show. But
really
it was
amazing.
Yeah. Just because I think like when I was talking to Steve, I really became present to the fact that sometimes we can't even imagine that something is possible. And we kind of create this idea that, if you're like this, things are not going to go well. And it's like, no, it's like this person kind of busts these myths. So I'm kind of excited about sharing her story with the world. But it was really such a, like, I really sense, this real journey with you through what is it to be empowered? You know, where does that come from? And what are we actually striving for? And what does that look like? So you gave us some really good insights into all of that.
Thank you.
Is there something you'd like to sort of add, or, you know, you're a health coach, or how could people work with you if they wanted to get some support?
So it's easy to work with me. They can find me online. My website is 8 Glasses of Water. Pretty, pretty sophisticated. And it's easy. So what I want people to you know, as a wrap up is that, you know, we are in control of our own lives. And unfortunately, as you said, you know, sometimes people think things are impossible, but we think they're impossible until somebody else does them.
That's so true.
And yeah, and if you think that being happy with yourself and being happy in your body is something that you need inspiration on, just look out for your inspiration wherever you feel your inspiration could be walking or talking or, you know, showing up, and empower yourself. Start from there, start from where you are in your journey, and take your, as you said, take your power back and really live your life, because it's really this beautiful gift. And unfortunately,
take your power back and live your life. We should put that in big bold.
yeah.
Take your power back and live your fucking life. Go for it.
Yeah, that's how I would have put it.
You can, I give you permission. Let's rip.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was so like really exciting to get into your world and see everything that you're up to, and your real concern for the younger generation. So I really appreciate all of that.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep in touch, and we'll say goodbye to everyone watching us, and we'll be back with some more inspirational topics in the near future. Talk to you soon.
Stay tuned. Bye. Thanks. Bye, Julie.